Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, he's Kyle Fergusson, and joining us triumphantly for his April appearance on the show is Mr. Jeff Cannata. Welcome back, Jeff.
Hey, guys. Thanks. I appreciate it. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. We got a new logo. We're recording at a new time. That time, if that affects you, if you're not a podcast listener, if you actually tune in live, is from now on, we will be recording on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern as opposed to 8 p.m. Eastern. This is so Kyle and I can have a life that makes sense in our Thursday evenings. It's been going too late. It's getting a little long and kind of rough. But I'm also sitting here, the graphic designer that I am, being like, yeah, look at that new logo, and realizing I have to update it for the intro video, and that fills me with a sense of dread.
4 years. That's some good mileage out of that old logo.
Yeah. I remember when I ripped off the first Heroes of the Storm logo.
Man, it's such an interesting week to have that feeling of retrospect, with the devs really coming at us this past week with the AMA information, Deckard Cain, a fan favorite, coming out. We got this super data stuff coming out too. Like, can we just dig in? This is nuts.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get started with this week's Heroes of the Storm news.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
I would like to tell you to play a while and listen, because you can play Deckard Cain right now. He's on the PTR. If you haven't done it already, you can go do it. I would recommend AI or try mode, because the queues are really long. I tried to just log a game as non-Deckard Cain today, and it didn't happen. My queue never popped.
What?
Really?
It feels like non-Deckard Cain should be jumping into games.
Yeah, you'd think. I guess there's just not a lot of people on PTR. They're all playing customs or just playing with their buddies or doing what I assumed they were doing and just playing AI. I don't know, but
There's too many variables. When tanks come out, there's that opportunity for really in-your-face aggression. When assassins come out, we're really excited to see how much ownage they've got in them. And when support's released, PTR is usually pretty dead. And particularly with this guy, I mean, the best thing I can come up with to describe what Deckard Cain's doing on the field is like a half version of Lili and Gazlo. And imagine Lili coming out today, and you look at Fast Feet and you go, okay, excellent. When she takes damage, I'm going to get movement speed, reduce cooldown. What exactly is happening here? And what will that feel like once I get inside the video game?
yeah. I'm not sure, but you've hit the nail on the head, dude. When I was trying out Deckard, I thought the same thing. I'm like, wow, this is more Gazzo-like than I thought, but also kind of Lili-like, in that I don't think I'm going to save anyone's bacon if things go down and I wasn't already prepared.
No. I had the pleasure of playing alongside an Illidan and aiming my potions to perfectly nothing but net was pretty impossible. But also, these healing potions have a set amount of healing they do. You know, you're going to get 230 healing whether or not you're missing 230 health. And if you're missing 15 health because a shrine minion walked up and slapped your bum, you're going to pick up that potion. And I found that Deckard was a thirsty man and drank the majority of the team's resources.
What do you think of the radius on the pickup on the potion? It's a little larger than I expected it to be. I found it a little easier to land my potions than I thought it was going to be. Granted, wasn't trying to heal an Illidan. That sounds like madness.
I think the most maddening part about him is actually the fact that the potions appear on the mini-map. So continually while we were losing this game, I was thinking, oh man, at least we got a sweet push going in the top lane. Which why are the buildings falling? It was the little potion icons overlapping each other, looking like a big old merc push happening.
Oh, they need to do something about that. I didn't notice that, but you're right. Now that I think about it,
Your potions need to have attack range. that would help. They could push for you.
they just spawn
Sentient
little.
potions.
They spawn little spider legs, become a Diablo
Yeah.
monster of their own. And push
Oh goodness!
forward.
Thank goodness they don't like allied spider mines. The little potions crawl legs and run after Illidan as he tries to dodge the heal, just like everybody else.
It's really interesting that it seems like, at least in the early days, it's basically Lili with all heals being skill shots instead of what I think they were going for, which is more the Gazlo. The set up a matrix of healing and allow your team to use it as needed. But it seems like efficiency and dealing with the people in need and not interrupting what they're actually doing is skill shot healing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm really going to double down on it's a mix of the two because of the 5 cap on the potions and the longer than I thought it would feel cooldown in between throwing potions. You really do need to set up ahead of time and then kind of keep that 5th one rolling as a skill shot heal.
But our perspective is so off because of Fortitude of the Faithful. While near one hero, you have 10 armor. We'll see what that means. Maybe you're a bit more dive resistant, and certainly have a really good combo to deal with dive. You have that maybe Heraldric Staff for the stun, but mostly if Greymane jumps in your face, you put out a big old slow triangle that says you may not want to stand here in a couple seconds when this finally goes off. And by the way, here's a Heraldric Cube to the face to slow you down. I'm going to drop some potions easily on myself using my ult click while I walk away, and Greymane gets rooted, and you survive. Kind of like a Malfurion there. But your damage participation is going to be really, really low. And your spell damage can be high if you're always hanging out with allies, particularly if you enhance that again at 16. So getting a perspective on this guy is so difficult, and you wonder what's going to happen to bot lane when normally Lili might go, all right, I'll go handle this, guys. You guys want to fight all day? I'll handle the bot. He really can't. It's really just impossible to solo lane with this man.
Oh, his lane clear, it doesn't exist. It's not a thing. Just get lane clear out of your mind as Deckard Cain, as far as I'm concerned. Probably my biggest takeaway from this is that it just feels strange, because while I was playing this guy, even against AI, it felt like I should never be auto-attacking. It's slow, it doesn't do enough damage, and it's melee. So I don't even... And the range on Heraldric Cube and Scroll of Sealing is so immense, it feels like you never really need to have a reason to engage within melee distance.
And yet, as Kyle is saying, he gets armor by standing around people. So maybe standing back in the back, far away from everybody, and sitting there with armor that you're not using. I guess that's just defensive against dive, but it seems like maybe that's not the most efficient way to use him.
Well, I mean, I think it's his anti-dive. That's a specific comp kind of point, right? You're not always going to be up against dive as Deckard. So, I think it's important to mention that. I don't think it's the most important, because it's not every game that's not going to even come into play.
Right. The reason sitting there with armor, right? So it's kind of a waste to be in the back if you're just chilling with. He doesn't give other people armor. It's just for him.
Right, and you're thinking in terms of like a damage mitigation. If there is standing next to me Jaina, and we have the choice that this skill shot with flat armor flies into Jaina or Deckard would want to soak that shot to reduce the damage by 10%. And then he's the easiest person to hit your skill shot heal on is yourself. So you can solo a boss on this guy at level 20. You just pile all the potions below you with the respawn, and you just, with your walking stick, have at it for a good half hour, and you'll get it done.
You're saying that you have to stay a while?
Yes. And hits him? I don't know.
And hits him. I love it. Stay a while and hits him.
I am so not as amused as you are by that.
But your health pool is exactly the same as Ana. You're looking at that like Lily Morales kind of health, which isn't insane because even Morales has more health than Brightwing, Kel'Thuzad, Lucio, Lunara, Sylvanas, Chromie, Hanzo, Raynor. By the way, those are in order. Chromie above Hanzo and Raynor in health.
Yeah, so to me, he just seems odd. I really like him. Like my gut reaction is that this is a type of hero, a type of support that I think I've always wanted. I like the idea of, yeah, I'm just going to hang out in the back for this basically entire game. Again, that's what it feels like because of the way Cube and Scroll work. But I just don't see it slotting in to the game that we're currently in.
There's a little bit of a disconnect because of the way his heroics function. You've got Lornado pushing people back, pushing people towards your team if you're ahead. You've got Stay a While and Listen, which you are locked into, which does the sleep effect. So you imagine, my low health Illidan out there. My choice is to, hopefully this potion is enough and it will actually hit him, or I lay him a nice little track to run back through, or I'm going to lock down the enemy. But I'm locked down too, so I can't put out potions during that. So are we blowing people up? Is this like a line everyone up for Kel'Thuzad to come through with a bit of a delayed blast? You shoot a chain. Chain does a tiny bit of damage on connect, which is going to break off the sleep. So finding that place for him is really difficult. But we're thinking, as trained by the old dev philosophy, which is something Blizz Cooper revealed in the AMA, they have completely changed the way they slot heroes. They don't do that anymore. They want to make sweet heroes, which is why maybe Maya, Phoenix, and Deckard now might release really powerful, but also in this more generic place. We're not making a tank buster. We're not filling out the assassin roles with spell damage anymore. They're just making heroes.
Which how do you feel about that? Both of you. I mean, I think that's fine. I think we have enough roles filled already that at this point, just go with whatever is progressing at a releasable rate.
Well, it's a fascinating explanation as to the thought process from Blizz Cooper, because he says they started out wanting to create this. Every hero has a very unique utility. You need this hero, and it does this thing better than any of the other heroes in the game. And so it's a very clear identity for what that hero is, which I think is a laudable goal. I think that's a really interesting thing. It's not just we're throwing content into this game. We're giving very interesting characters very interesting traits so that they can stand out amongst their peers. There's a very clear time when you need that role filled, and that character does it better than anybody else. I think that's really cool. But then he says what that leads to is the idea that you can lose in a draft, that if you don't pick the right scissors to beat paper or rock to beat scissors, then you literally are going into the draft, or you're going into the game having lost in the draft. And I think that is definitely something that can ruin the fun of a game when you feel like, oh my gosh, there was a clear hero to pick here. There's a clear best version of what we should have gotten, and we didn't get it. So we're at a disadvantage. I think it's more interesting ultimately to be playing a game where the skill and performance of the match is more important than picking the right utility and composition.
I find it hard to argue against that. Like, I would assume most people would agree with that sentiment, right? Like, at the end of the day, do you want rock, paper, scissors, or do you want a display of skill to decide the victor? I think we would all go, yeah, display of skill.
But I wouldn't come to that automatically, right? Like, when he lays it out and says, originally our philosophy was make every hero unique. I think that's yeah, exactly. I don't want you to just fill your game with heroes that all basically can do everything. That seems boring. Like, why am I picking one over another just because I like the way they look or what, or the lore? That's less interesting, I think, on the face of it for me than the idea that each hero has its own identity. But then, the result of that being this sort of losing in draft idea, I go, oh yeah, you're right. I think you need to have some heroes that can sort of work in a lot of different, you need to have those Swiss Army knife heroes, and each hero has to have a little Swiss Army knife to them in order to make the game more fun.
Yeah. I mean, now we're just getting kind of into the overall difficulties with developing a game like this. At the end of the day, especially with the competitive side of things, quick batch notwithstanding, Heroes of the Storm is an asymmetrical PvP game. We don't have mirror matchups. And that's kind of the goal. So even if you are trying as hard as possible to actively avoid rock, paper, scissors, if every hero needs to be different from one another and not have a lot of homogenization, eventually there will be one hero will counter another hero, and those will keep piling up just through the nature of designing unique kits. So it's...
Yeah, I think my hope has always been with this particular game that, and other games handle it in different ways, obviously with items and such, but with this particular game that you could have multiple talent builds that can sort of mitigate some of that specialization, right? So you have characters that are specialized, extremely specialized, and feel like the right character in a given situation. But if you find yourself in a draft that's all wonky, you can sort of specialize within the context of the game through talent selection. But the problem with that is that it takes even more game knowledge rather than less. So it's not really solving the problem of that I think of losing fun. I think that problem gets heightened in that situation because you find it to be a more limited amount of the player base that can use that compensation to still have fun.
Yeah, now you're
sense?
Pulling me into a conversation I had no clue I'd ever have again, which is, was it a mistake to get rid of generic talents? There's a conversation there. Like, getting all these unique talents, and even though we know, because we've been with this game since generic talents being phased out into bespoke versions of basically generic talents spread across multiple heroes, we know that one talent on one hero can be very similar to another talent on another. But if you're new to the game, that is not apparently obvious. Even if you're just reading, if you're actually going through reading talent by talent, it's not apparently obvious.
Right.
What do you think, Kyle?
I think this is the new design philosophy. I certainly respect how fun it must be, how freeing it is to just design a hero and not worry about too much about where they're going to fit in the meta at this point. Do we need more spell damage type tanks? It's sad to think of some older heroes like Sammy who are so dependent on auto attacks, and now there are so many blind options when he was designed during that more rock, paper, scissors phase. You think about something like level 13 Nazebo. You got Ice Block and Superstition and Guardian Toads being the one I'd never take, but I've got a real cool choice there between those two talents as to what sort of damage I want to dodge, what sort of CC I'm interacting with on the enemy side. And making those choices are developed over the course of the game now, rather than I'm Nazebo, I'm automatically going to take this, but this week Diablo's in. Diablo is the absolute hotness right now. We are fastly approaching perhaps a stunlock meta, and Diablo's really leading the charge, pun intended. If we enter a world where that stunlock meta continues to grow, then we'll see Lightning Breath Diablo again, because that makes him unstoppable, and he can continue to interact with the enemy team rather than getting stunlocked when he wants to do stuff in zone. So it's always a fascinating back and forth. Looking at Deckard now with this very generic and weird kit, you just don't know where he's going to plug in. And that gives us a very scary play area for day one. Because when Alex Straza came out, everybody wanted to be a dragon, but we all sort of respected that throwing down a circle in range of Stukov or anybody with any AoE was going to be disastrous. So we held back a little bit. Deckard seems very fun. If I were to do a forecast for you guys, I would say avoid Hero League on Deckard Cain release, because he does look like fun. But just like Medivh, we all need to build an eye for portals. We need to build an eye for potions. And these will not be visible to you on the ground when Diablo's shooting fire in all directions.
My biggest concern is not even building an eye for the potions. It's building the patience for them. Because it's one thing to engage on an objective before Gazlo gets set up, right? You're missing some damage there, but it's another to engage so early that your healer is not effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and he doesn't seem to need a ton of setup time because you can pop those things out pretty quick. But yeah, it does feel like healer Gazlo a little bit.
I mean, I was having trouble keeping AI Muradin alive, so I would push back a little bit. It's like the time between potions. I'm sitting there just going, "Come on, where is it? I need another one."
I mean, if you feel like you're not putting out enough healing on the field, the Ruby at level 4 is going to be really helpful to spawn those mini potions in the area.
I am a big fan of that talent. I think that talent severely increases his viability as a support.
Well, and you'll quickly realize as you get every gem that you can only put one in a Herodra cube at a time. And the way the cooldowns work here, even with your perfect gems at 20, you'll still probably only be wanting to run one talent at a time.
Yeah, that is something I didn't see coming when we saw the details for Deckard. I didn't really consider the fact that, if I pick all the gems, I can really still only use one gem at a time because I get locked out of the other gems. I think we both used the term piano build when Deckard got announced, and it's not really. I mean, kind of. It's a piano build if once you press one key, you have to wait quite a while before you can press another key.
Well, it seems much more like a way to specialize him than it is to have all these options in one build. It feels like you pick the gem that you want to go with, and then you use the other talent tiers to get other things.
Exactly.
I think so as well. Maybe it's just a little bit more obvious of a trap build than builds we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, something I think everyone will very quickly realize, but there will be a lot of day one gem builds.
Yeah. I mean, bigger, more overarching question, because I feel like the theme around our Deckard talk now is how does he fit in, and also how that plugs into the design philosophy that they're talking about of, we're not worried about if they fit in or not, we're just going to put it out. Are we okay with that? Does it matter? Like, I think I'm fine with it. I'm totally okay if the new hero that comes out does not have a place in the meta for a very long time. That was the case until things like Maya happened. But I could see where if we got a bunch of dud heroes in a row, especially after having to wait longer for those heroes, public opinion and conversation eventually reaching a boiling point like what we saw just last week.
I would say if you asked me last week, I would have a very different answer. This week, I saw a lot of Abathur and Vala together, and Vala appeared to be dead last week, and everyone was saying, Hanzo's the better Vala, what are you even doing playing Vala? But now we added an Abathur on top of it, so we can get a clone. She's a bit more explosive. You're kind of putting a secondary support on top of her, much like your Tassadar, and Vala's getting to run wild at the same time, as we talked about before as well. The part of this game that is the most dangerous is standing too close to each other. The talent power spikes that involve hitting multiple heroes are rather insane. Even Deckard's got these 200% damage if he hits more than one hero at a time. So by taking Abathur and mixing it with Vala, you are reducing the damage dealt to Vala because there's one less hero occupying the area, causing those talents to go off. And she's suddenly having this slight resurgence alongside in a stunlock meta where you can't get on Vala in the first place. So the game is, we as a community are continually making up for things like Hanzo being the better version of Vala and counteracting our own rock, paper, scissors in that way. So as long as we can continue to do that and dodge those problems that develop, this is going to be an exciting game to follow. But we could just start overlapping ourselves and getting kitchen sink heroes that keep outclassing the old guys.
I think that's all fair. My TLDR is I'm not too worried. I like Deckard on a very personal level. I don't think I'll be picking him anytime soon if I'm tryharding. But I really like his kit. By the way, and we haven't even mentioned his damn heroics. Lord Nato is really satisfying.
It's nasty.
It is a bastard talent, and I love it.
Yeah. Summonable Chen, basically, in a barrel.
It makes the same noise. Did you hear that it makes the same damn noise when it lands?
Disturbing.
It makes that same, like, dunk noise when it moves you around.
I find that on Sky Temple, that stupid boss mini Lornado to be so friggin' frustrating. And now that it's on a hero, I'm like, oh, here we go. Yeah.
Oh man, it's funny you bring that up. You're giving me flashbacks because I remember when Sky Temple got added and the tornado came out. I'm like, oh, it doesn't do damage. This is so much better than the circles that the other bosses do. And I'm like, very shortly, I was like, no, this is so much worse. It follows you.
It's like it knows where I'm trying to go to get back, and it's like, no. It's like your little brother heading you off at the pass every 2 minutes.
Why were you afraid of your little brother? You're supposed to beat up on the little or something.
Yeah, big brother. I don't have any brothers. I don't know how brothers work. I was just
found out, Jeff Cannata. Found out.
I'm actually the tornado. To my little sister. That's what the problem was.
I believe that. That is a picture that's painted very well in my mind. Oh, that's great. Well, Kyle, we already kind of teased that the AMA that was going to be our second topic today, which is highlights from the Dev AMA that came out. Kind of giving you the short version. Obviously, you can go to the subreddit and read the whole thing if you want. But we got a timeline for the features that they talked about. As far as the new toxicity report system, they said a couple of weeks. We saw one of the parts of that already hit the game, supposedly. The matchmaking improvements is going to just kind of roll out as ready, like piece by piece, very kind of old school Blizzard style. When it's ready, we'll put it out. We're not going to get, it sounded like they're not going to get all the different components ready for one big, massive rollout, but just piecemeal as it's finished.
This one is MMR, it seems, and they are going to do it. It's official. We're going MMR. They have said that right now they have to match your MMR with your rank, which is why when you load up for a Hero League game, you will see a range from, Diamond 1 to Diamond 5 maybe in your game, because rank is how they're showing your performance. It's your badge. It's what you show off to have that skill to an audience. And MMR is doing that exact same thing. So we're pulling uphill this stubborn rank when actually the MMR is kind of just doing all the work. So it's time to show it.
So
I say hooray.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you think we're just going to get a number, or are ranks going to rapidly change?
I've never known an MMR to be anything but 1,000 base number, usually ranging from, well, as low as you can go, I guess, to about 4,000.
All right. As far as loss forgiveness, that'll be coming, they said, in the next couple of months. That's fine. This is a thing I wasn't sure we were ever even going to get, so I'm more than happy waiting for it. And then as far as ranked improvements in the third ban, that'll be coming around June. So that's again, I feel like at this point in my life, I'm like, that's right around the corner. Whereas if I had been in college and games were life, it would have felt like it was very long away.
Some of these ranked improvements are going to be very incremental. So you can expect things like performance-based matchmaking to turn on slowly. What they said they're going to do, which is a great idea, is turn it on, but attach no points to it. So you will see that you didn't soak effectively. You didn't take as many camps maybe as your fellow Sonias did. And those would dock you X number of points, which aren't actually applied to your points. We'll have a conversation with the devs as a community if we like the amount of points being tied to those things, if they're working and showcasing a opportunity to grow, which is the real thing here. That information, if correct, will teach you how to be better at this game.
Yeah, it's like training wheels, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Then on the flip side, they talked about what they're basically not working on. They were very candid about the fact that if their engineers are working on some features, other features go by the wayside, and it sounds like those features are reconnect speed, viewing other games, a public API, and a clan system. Those last two bum me out in a major way.
It's funny because a year ago, 2 years ago, I can't remember. The clan system was front and center of the thing they said was coming very soon. So I wonder what changed between then and now.
We went through StarCraft, so I took it with a grain of salt when they said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is true. It doesn't bum me out any less. This is a social game. It needs it. StarCraft isn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're basically playing by yourself at StarCraft. The public API thing, I think, was always going to be a long shot, but I think it could have been really cool to see what would result from that. But so that one to me is the biggest bummer. I reconnect speed, of course, would be nice, but whatever. Viewing other games would be nice, but not a huge priority for me. The public API thing is the one that would potentially have the biggest impact on how the game is actually played game to game. And I also had the biggest question marks about what the possibilities could be. So that one is the one that I find to be a little disappointing.
Yeah, of all four, that's the one I want the most. Clan system coming in second. I don't care nearly as much about reconnect speed and viewing other games. But that being said, I did disconnect from a game for the first time in a long time last week. Oh boy, it takes a long time to get back in there.
And it's excruciating, right? You just feel so powerless, and you're just like, please. And then you hear yourself dying and all that stuff. You're just like, it's the worst possible situation.
It's okay to mute that. I think that's a fine update. I know it's not a switch that you can probably just throw. There's probably a very complicated pile of code that it takes to mute that. But oh my goodness, the listening.
Yeah.
Not sure what's happening out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll even get chat that comes up in like that weird fast speed where it's like, oh, did Uther just drop or whatever? It's like, yeah, sorry,
Yep.
I'm powerless to come back.
Oh, even better is what your AI is pinging about.
Yeah.
What he's into, what people are trying to make him do.
Yeah.
Diving a little deeper into some of the comments from the AMA, Blizz Joe, on the subject of kind of teaching the community, said that beyond these things, we're looking for more opportunities to provide actionable feedback to player through the end of match sequence, and that right now they're considering an XP missed stat that tracks missed team opportunities for experience generation. I like that a lot, although at the same time, I'm not sure how helpful that is if it's not very specific.
Right. It won't tell you likely where the XP was when you lost it, merely that this amount of XP hit computer-controlled walls, and the computer did not make any XP out of that. There was no resources to be shared.
If it's as simple as that, if they can give you just that one little modifier of, X amount of XP lost to structures, that helps a lot. If they just show me XP missed, that doesn't tell me much.
Well, and it's really only useful as maybe shot caller, or certainly as a team. And we get a lot of emails about what can I do to be a better shot caller for my team? How can I lead? And really, the best way to put that in a vacuum is to have a full team. So you can be in control of all the elements. So when you make a bad call, it is 100% there because you knew the skill of all your players and what you could have done differently. And if I leave a team game and it says, hey, you missed out on this amount of XP, we can absolutely say, wow, our soaking is awful. Let's clean that up.
I think it's really great that you brought that up, and I don't want to go off on a tangent at all, but I would love for you guys, or even just you, Kyle, on your personal channel, but I think on this show would be a great discussion to have about how to shot call, especially in the era of voiceover in the game, voice comms in the game, talking to strangers and asserting that position. I feel like nobody wants to do that on their team, and it can really, in the era of having voice comms, if everybody is quiet on voice, it's a disadvantage. You are ceding an advantage to your opponent. If they are talking to one another and you're not, you are already, behind the eight ball. And I think that just how to communicate to people with voice, what to say, when to say it, how to assert yourself as a sort of de facto leader, I think would be such a helpful tangent for you guys to go down on the show at some point. It would help me.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's a
It's
good
on
one.
the list.
The short one is be polite.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and enjoy, and I'd say certainly with random comms, enjoy the discovery of it. And that moment where you go, oh, what happened there? And you discover that the Li Ming is being left free to poke your backline. And we ask and we make that choice for our off tank to start handling that job. Like, those are fascinating to me. And I love that exchange. So I know I'm kind of odd like that. I'm that cheerleader type. I want to be your support and tank so you can be awesome as possible. Because I know what you couldn't actually pull that off without me. And I put all the brownie points in my basket, though you felt awesome.
Right.
Initiate the high five.
Yeah.
That's I think is the most important thing. Start with a couple compliments, a couple rah-rahs, and before you know it, people are used to hearing your voice, and you can start guiding the strategy.
I agree with all that, but I also feel like the more granular discussion that I hope you guys can have at some point too is what are the most important points to start with, as far as instructions to your team. Is it time to go grab a Merc camp? Is it we need so and so go soak X lane? Is it what are the first key things at the beginning of a match to sort of establish, hey, I'm going to be the shot caller here, and I'm giving you solid advice that you can immediately trust and understand that if we all get on board, we'll do a better job as a team.
There's a lot to mine there.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Longer conversation for a different episode, but one I hope you have.
I dig.
I like it. Yeah.
I dig. You know what I don't dig? Their comments on specialists.
Now, hang on, because it is. Yes, they did basically say that specialists are fine, win rates are fine. Don't look at it. Don't worry about it.
That's exactly it. Their answer was, yeah, don't worry. Just don't worry about it. But I am worried about it. That's not an answer.
Well, I mean, at the same time, we do need to say that this is really cool that we had this discussion about teaching the player base for weeks. And already we've seen this idea with XP that can be actionable, even if it's not entirely clear. We're going to learn something there. And they also put out the stutter stepping video this week with Kala on the launcher, which has already garnished some over 100,000 views. Man. And that's pretty important too.
Man, Kyle, you're doing just as good a job as they are from not mentioning specialists and dodging my question. Good job. Good job.
I'm just saying, like, there are more important pieces at the moment. Well, and really, like, honestly, specialists are so unique to Heroes of the Storm. It's a blessing. It's a blessing we even have them. Summons in a MOBA that goes on for over 30 minutes are useless. You can buy items in other games that maybe enhance your summons, maybe you're heroic. That's still a flat amount of damage and flat amount of health once you've reached max level. And because our games end in a standard amount of time, things like Asmodean are viable enough. Zagar is viable enough. Every other MOBA has awful summoning characters for the most part. Very great power spikes right when they hit their summon levels, but they die off very quick after.
I'll admit I'm more biased than most when it comes to my specialist love. But, just last week we spent a good amount of time on this show about engaging your audience, getting people interested in esports. And the fact is that specialists barely get played in professional Heroes of the Storm. So if you're just kind of ignoring that fact and not doing anything about it, and also releasing more and more assassins that do a specialist job just as good and bring more to the team fight, why are these heroes even in the game?
I don't think why even in the game, but yeah, you do have that sort of bloat that's happening with Varian. Why is there even a multi-class if we haven't expanded that at this point? Can that just be a warrior? That's what he is. I mean, we call Sonya a warrior, and depending how you play, yeah, you take a leap for some CC. Maybe you can main tank in your particular style. I wouldn't recommend it, but, so can Colossal Smash Varian, right? So why not just give him the warrior title?
Yeah, you're right. That is weird that it's pulled out into its own separate category, and there's one hero that fits that role. It seems like if that had been a plan to create this new classification of hero, we would have had at least one other at this point. How long ago did Varian get introduced? A year?
Yeah, it would have been Ragnaros. Yeah, so not this previous BlizzCon, but the one before it.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't bother me as much because it's, to me, I just see Varian as an issue of semantics, whereas I see Specialists, basically Nazebo aside, as here is a class of heroes that don't really have competitive viability.
Well, and you're also, I mean, the reason I bring up Summons too is because it's a great example of what works in low play environments when you're surrounded by Zool zombies and you're going, oh, I'm surrounded. No, not the zombies. But anybody else would just walk away before they touched you in melee. Summons and in general, most specialist spells are based around lane clear, perhaps, or having some sort of presence or doing damage in a unique way, having a different set of CC. And those can all be performed by better, higher damage, or additional role characters. Why even draft lane clear with something like Rexxar? Like that's the one that's bizarre to me. Rexxar has a great resurgence right now because of HGC. Lots of presence. People are running really bizarre comps on Braxis using no support, maybe no tank Rexxar solo lane, and then he joins up and that team has a lot of damage and you're healing off all that poke damage with your bear. That's cool. That's happening. But in our home games, they took away what made Rexxar unique, his ability to lane clear. They nerfed down all those talents that helped him be such a powerhouse on things like Blackheart's Bay when that was in rotation, as long ago as that was. So a lot of what makes a specialist simply isn't viable in pro at all. It can be done by others.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the salient point here, and may not be comforting to you, Garrett, but I don't necessarily think that just because it's not viable in esports means it's an indictment of the entire classification of hero. The requirements of an esport team to be competitive is so different than necessarily what you encounter playing, solo queue Hero League. That I find, at least in my league, oftentimes a specialist is the biggest swing in a match, in a game, because it has the biggest impact from a single player perspective on the composition of the map. What structures are standing or not, and maybe that's okay, right? Maybe the fact that this entire classification of hero is for a different kind of player than the esports player. Maybe that's okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, my argument is that it's not, is basically it. My argument is that it's not okay. And again, it definitely comes from a place of personal bias, but I find time over is that the players I meet that are the most passionate about this game, and that's something we talk about so much when we get emails all the time, who should I play? How can I learn how to play a hero? And it seems like more often than not, Kyle, you and I both, our first answer is play what you want, play what you are passionate about, play what puts a smile on your face when you hit the play button. And at least in my experience, and again, it's probably my bias, the people I find that really get nerd out about this game are the specialist players. And so what I'm trying to do is tie it into the esports of if I personally am less inclined to watch Heroes esports because it doesn't look like my games at home. And we so often spend so much time on this game or on the show talking about how do we take what we saw in esports and make it work for our games at home. But this one time I want to flip it on its head and say, what can we do to take this game and force the esports to reflect it better for stuff like Hero League and whatnot?
It's a fascinating conversation to have right now because every game is having what they would call an education problem. Overwatch, at the top end, pros, casters, they believe that no one knows how to draft. Dota is having an education problem because their games don't look like the pros right now. And to hear things that we consider widely successful having that same issue, it's a bizarre thing. And maybe our games will never look like each other. We've invested so heavily as video gamers, as companies, into esports. We are continuing to try to make it viable, but it's also just as wacky town as our quick match. And I'm very curious to see as we continue diving into teaching the community where we even go. I mean, Jeff's request here, how do you shot call? Let me tell you a billion ways. Set up the crime scene and I'll get out the red string and draw some diagrams here because it's going to be madness. It all depends. And when we have a focus on fun like we do here, it's a lot easier to break those down into individual ideas. I'm concerned during this big push for education that we are going to come up with more stereotypes about specialists and how much we hate them. We're going to be more angry at Valos over Hanzos because that's what we're being told. When really, half the battle is not tilting in the draft. And being excited about, we have a first pick Rhaegar. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at to my impromptu answer to you, Jeff, talking about shot calling and whatnot. I was like, I think it starts socially. It begins socially because so much more the deeper levels are learning how to play this game, learning when A, B, and C is true, that your reaction is X, basically.
Sure.
But so much of it comes down to the social aspect.
Now, something they are doing is making Quick Match be an actual comp. One warrior, one healer, one assassin, and then 2 flex picks. Guaranteed in every single match with longer queue times to make this work, like your World of Warcraft looking for group kind of systems. That means in a vacuum that we are going to increase the player-based knowledge because you will start to gain opinions about the people around you. How interesting. I queued as Maiev, and I had an Ana with a Garrosh tanking for me. I didn't really like that Ana, but I liked the Garrosh part. What if in my draft I then suggested we did an Alex instead, and how much more I would be into that? And following that from a at-home perspective is very cool. Because I think the most rewarding experiences you can have are when you teach yourself, when you figure out something that you know that nobody else knows. Don't even look online. Don't ruin it for yourself. Like, enjoy that gem you've discovered. What's happening when you go in there and you figure out your Zagara and you figure out how much you love her, and then from the top down, you're being barked that this is unviable.
Yeah, I think this is a hugely positive improvement for Quick Match. I mean, I know you guys have referred to it often as Wacky Match, and there's a certain fun to Wacky Match, right? But it is ultimately, I think, regressive to the game to jump in and have the most casual experience be the one that is the least instructive to how the game should be played, right? If this is your entry point into playing with other human beings, and it does not reflect how the game should be played on a competitive level, then what are you even doing?
Yeah, I'm totally in your camp, Jeff. I think this is a great change because of that, because of the fact that Quick Match is for most people the entry level into Heroes of the Storm. That getting somewhat sane comps is going to do a lot to inform players on what this game looks like once you actually step into a draft environment. And while I don't want to dismiss your concern, Kyle, of, I queued Zagara a bunch of times in Quick Match. I got a real comp. It worked out really great. It was fine. No one had an opinion because I'm not drafting. Now I'm going to try on Ranked or Hero League. Now suddenly everyone's yelling at me for picking Zagara. Boy, I think that's a niche concern that I'm not nearly as concerned with as I am with the positives of this change to Quick Match.
Interesting. You're right. You're walking a dangerous tightrope with these specialists, aren't you?
What do you mean?
Oh no, just I was using Zagara to maybe get you on my side.
Oh well,
sprinkle some seed in my camp.
What camp is that? Do you not like this change to Quick Match?
No, I think it's fine. It's just we were talking earlier about where's the place of specialists, and queuing is still going to cause maybe one of those picks to be an Abathur usually.
Yeah. Again, I mean, we tend to err on the side of screw a popular opinion, play what you know, play what you're good at, play what you're passionate about. And so to that I say, yes, that will happen. F those jerks. Cue that hero you love.
I love this line, though, from what Blizz Joe said. The plan then is to follow up on this change by adding more incentives for queuing as roles that are currently underrepresented in matchmaking queue. Incentives, huh?
Boy, I love the sound of that too.
Yeah, what is that? I remember wasn't there early on in like the alpha or beta that there was like if you queued as a certain role you got extra XP? Am I making that up?
No, you got it. When you queue as Sexy Picard, the random dude, you
right. Yeah.
get a little bit of bonus XP. And we can expect a similar system to kind of like World of Warcraft, right? Like right now, hey, there's no healers in the queue. You want to queue up as a healer? It'll be real fast, and I'll give you some bonus XP.
I think that's cool. I think that's a great idea.
There's also an argument, I think, for just getting into a game faster being a bonus in its own right.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if they surfaced that info a little bit better, like, had a little aura around certain portraits in your roster of the heroes that will get you into a game quickest.
Yeah, I think that'll be solid. I mean, yeah, I love this feature in World of Warcraft when I'm using the Dungeon Finder. So yeah, anything they give me, whether it's gold, whether it's shards, whether it's just more XP, which leads to chests, which leads to gold, yada yada, etc. I like this a lot. I really like these quick match changes. It would make me more inclined to just play quick match when I just want a quick hero fix.
Funny that we're kind of the ones sitting here saying that. Then quick match is, according to the stats they have, of course, and these are the official stats from Blizzard, the most populated and busiest mode in this game. And we're sitting here going, you know what, I might play some quick match from time to time.
Well, I think that it is. I think that is a result of lower queue times. I think quick match reliably has the quickest. It's called quick match. You get in quickest, but also I think a lot of people don't want to deal with the draft, and those of us that are really, I think, super committed to the game. That's what I love. I love the draft. I mean, that element of strategy is so much more fun. So I would like I feel like these changes have the potential to introduce people to the concept of how a composition of your team impacts play and introduces them to that strategic layer.
I agree. My fear still it's a fear that is, as generic as saying I might stub my toe right in the morning. Like just go about your life, dude. Don't worry about that. But I am concerned that a lot of these matchmaking changes, the system itself, the ranks, the MMRs. When I look at YouTube comments on that stutter step video, I see people saying, do body block. Nobody knows how to body block. And I'm like, well, you're making you want videos made for people who aren't you. You want other people to watch. You want other people to listen. Yeah. Where do you come into this equation? And I feel like there's a lot of people, just like our season rolls, waiting for that announcement. Okay, new matchmaking's out, everybody. And they're going to go, great, awesome. And they're going to jump in there, and the It's Not Me continues to build. And we get even more player frustration as we grow game knowledge. We're growing game knowledge. We're learning more about what's a good comp, but we're not able to impose our will on other players, which is why I always say, be thrilled that that's a first pick Rhaegar, because how interesting, what a puzzle. Let's have some fun.
So astute. It is so absolutely true that everybody wants everybody else to learn.
It's so tough. True. I remember from World of Warcraft raiding, the guys who complained the most about the raid makeup were the guys who didn't get to raid that night because they sat there for 2 hours writing that forum post. Right. And it's a weird back and forth.
I love the fact that Call of video exists and is in the launcher. It got me to watch it. But, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke or to reveal my bias, but Kyle, your stutter stepping video is light years better than this in the sense that it actually provides some useful technique. Like, I think Kala's is more like, I mean, he does call it 101, so maybe 102 or 201 or whatever you want to call the next class is that next step in stutter stepping. But I feel like he's basically just defining the term and showing what it is rather than actually giving some solid instruction on how to accomplish it. He doesn't talk anything about assigning your keys or button presses or anything that actually can be applicable information to accomplish stutter stepping to somebody that has never done it before.
Well, and my job in my videos is to excite you. I'm after the hobbyists. I want you to see this, be inspired, and then say you want to learn more. And I think Kala's video does perform that. It gives a great rundown of what it is, what defines this activity, why you should put so much work into getting good at it. I agree that maybe it misses that casual curiosity, that inspiration that would get people to continue down that line of thought, which is maybe why it might have fell a little flat here. I'm happy that it's being seen, and I am more curious where you go next, because as we just talked about, it depends is huge. So when you start out and you want to make educational content, you start with mechanical play. You start with the things that you can do today to change your way you play. And stutter stepping and quick casting absolutely is one of those. How do we break down a more advanced idea? And how do we keep it from being so time sensitive? This week, I released a How to Diablo guide, and it was 5 minutes long. And it could have been a half hour, because there was body blocking to go over. There was devastate, charge, and why doing percent-based damage is so good in the double tank meta with all the CC he brings. But I skipped all that to just talk about the fun combos, because I want you to be inspired to continue to play Diablo and get good eventually.
Yeah.
I want to just abandon...
I want to see where they can go with that. I'm curious to see other coaches, other informers in the community to take on these it depends topics.
You should follow it up with, and I'd like one of them to be me.
Well, I'm doing my version too. I mean, but there's so many different kinds, right? Like Kala has his Tempo Storm, and that is an authority, and that's great. A lot of people need their butts whooped. I'm one of them. My workouts, that was a 2-year process in getting me to even accept it, and I complained my butt off, dude. I was a horrible human, and Kristen is a saint for sitting through with me and being like, I know it's heavy, pick it up again. It makes no sense. Your body's going, you ate food so you could sleep, dude. Go relax. This isn't natural. But once I got it, I feel great. And it depends. Some people want, a bit of handheld, a bedside manner, and for them to be like, it's a cool idea. Maybe you can explore this. And other people need a bit of a slap and to get going, soldier. And both are very legitimate.
I am the latter. I need to basically be demeaned to learn something. I really do.
That's a whole other podcast. What's going on there?
I get complacent when you're too kind. Is my point. But I see where you're going with that, Jeff. I like it. I would like to pick up that joke and keep it rolling, but this is a PG-13 show.
I mean, mine's a lot of my philosophy is very clicker training. It's basically based on dogs. You want everyone to have some agency over their play. You shouldn't walk out that gate when the whole enemy's there, but do you really know? You could try. You're 3 levels up after all. Maybe you can make something cool happen. And there we're making a choice in the realm of fun to do something exciting. And when you catch something like Jeff and I's coaching on Wednesdays, you'll see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of maybe ignoring of things that went wrong, really solid sit downs when we got to talk about a big topic. But when the stun hits well, when it hits the correct target, and we realize and solve the puzzle together, what changed this game atmosphere, that's rewarded. Click, 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 treats fly. It's not meant to be demeaning, but it's a great way to learn.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're absolutely right, man. Well, this show's going a little longer than I expected, so let's break here before we get into the PTR balance patch and thank our patrons who are supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. If you're not aware, the Patreon is an opt-in way to support this show. Into the Nexus is free. It will continue being free. It will always be free. But if you'd like to support us, if you'd like to throw us $1 an episode, $2 an episode, whatever works for you, check out patreon.com/ITN. We really appreciate it. There's hundreds of you over there right now supporting us. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H and Cheesy Bob. But we want to thank some of our newer patrons. Huge thanks to John T, T-Dot, and Philip G. Thank you for the support, everybody. It's because of you that we get to pay Mr. Jeff Cannata here to be a guest host once a month. When Dunk comes on, we pay him for his time as well. And that's so cool because we've been doing this for a while. And it's nice to finally not just ask people to give us their time for nothing.
It is very much appreciated. I am so grateful to everybody that values the show enough to actually donate to it. It's a huge thing, and it it's why specialized shows like this can exist, and we can all, make a living on the internet. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I also want to say I always imagined Declan H and Cheesy Bob hanging out together, but I realized that they probably don't even know each other. But they're always said back to back like that. And I just assume that there's some sort of like Simon and Garfunkel duo,
Fair enough. I imagine them sitting in the balcony just making fun of Into the Nexus as the show produces.
You know what? Hey, as producers, I think that is their right.
Yeah, Statler and Waldorf. And yeah, no, they are many, many states apart as far as I know. But we thank them nonetheless. All right, let's get into the PTR balance patch, because more things are on the PTR than just Mr. Deckard Cain. But some changes to draft mode are happening. I really like this change. Hero portraits in your draft lobby are now going to use 2D-based hero art rather than animated 3D hero skin models. And
so back to like it was when it started.
This is probably crappy of me because I don't think I ever said it on the show, but I have had this thought a million times of, boy, it's really hard to tell what hero this is sometimes, and they should probably just switch back to that. And since I don't think I ever said it live, I could just be lying to you, but I'm not. I've had this thought a million times, and I'm really happy that they're doing this.
I think it's super cool that you could see the skin that you were choosing in your portrait, but it also made it many times where I was like, oh, they picked Nazebo. Nope, that's Johanna with that weird Nazebo face mask skin thing.
I've never done that one, but I can totally see it. You do still flash in the middle of the screen wearing whatever your getup is. So your 3D render where you say you're lying to the hunt and whatnot, still 3D, still going to show off how cool you are, but on the image there you will just be the face cut out of the drawing.
I think that's really great because the 3D model, when you select, that is great for your opponent. So they know what they're going to be looking for in the actual battlefield. But the portrait, in the time of selection, before you actually lock it in, your team needs that information. They need to know what hero you're actually hovering over and not which variant of an elemental troll or orc, because there's so many elemental troll and orc skins in this game, you actually are.
They're also just a cut frame of the fully rendered character. And when you have 10 of them bouncing around, the draft screen is extremely taxing for this game.
A lot about this game is taxing. I'm very excited to see what happens with the DirectX change that'll be coming up very soon. But as for the balance patch itself, probably really the only hero who's getting substantial changes is Genji. And the devs are basically continuing down the, in their words, less frustrating path that they've been on recently. We saw them talk a lot about making heroes less frustrating to play in all of the tracer changes that we've seen in the last month. So with Genji, they said, quote, while we think resetting Swift Strike's cooldown after killing enemy heroes with Dragon Blade made for cool, flashy plays, it shut down too many other heroes too often. It also caused too many games to become about how much value Genji was able to get out of Dragon Blade. We like the flashiness that Dragon Blade resets provide, so we're keeping that functionality, but we're now adding it to his level 20 Storm Talent version of the Heroic. So they just kind of slide that in there. By the way, you get to keep doing it, but at level 20. And they're also increasing his health and basic attack damage roughly by 4.5%. It's a little different between the two of them, but it's all within that ballpark. They're reducing the range of Swift Strike. It's a little over a 14% reduction, and they're increasing the cooldown of Cyber Agility by an even 20% because they want to reduce his mobility while boosting his base stats to compensate. This is not dissimilar from the Tracer changes.
No, not too different either from the nerf we saw in Nova's pinning shot build last week, increasing the cooldowns there. Genji, hiding behind a wall, not doing anything for a moment, will still be playing basically the same, maybe even more dangerous when he shows up on the field and participates in the opening moment. But the Genji in a prolonged fight will be doing a lot less. I think this Dragon Blade change is very healthy. We are going to see a big shift in the way Genjis pick out their talents too, because the majority of Genjis do a Swift Strike build right now because you're going to get those Dragon Blade combos. You have no auto attacks while you're Dragon Blading, so you're basically laying out kind of a track that's going to do some bonus damage while you zip about.
And you think just the range reduction is enough to shift builds?
Mainly the Dragon Blade not resetting the cooldown on Swift Strike, because you would, as a Genji, Swift Strike into a position where you had no intention of getting a reset, start slashing away, get that kill, get a reset you shouldn't have gotten, if you will, based on the text on Swift Strike, and then been able to get out of that position.
Gotcha.
Do you guys think it's weird that in this this balance patch they didn't really touch Phoenix?
Yes. That's
yes
a
and
weird
no.
one, right?
Yes and I don't know. Actually, I'm less concerned now. Again, we don't have perfect stats. I feel like I always have to lead with that anytime we invoke HOTS logs. It's not perfect stats, but they're not working on an API, so I don't have an alternative. He's dropped a lot. I mean, he's still top win rate, but we're looking at what, 55% right now. I don't actually have the website up. I probably could have done that during my preamble.
55%, 1% above Thrall, the next in line, and he fell a full 9% since last week.
Yes, he is sitting barely above Kerrigan, Murky, Thrall, and Lily. I would like to point out that Kerrigan and Murky don't have very many games played. But actually, no, Phoenix in the last 7 days doesn't have that many more games than Kerrigan played. Lily and Thrall, on the other hand, tons of games logged. So
it's interesting how they're just slow playing this and letting it play itself out and see if Phoenix calms down. But I really, based on how quick they've been in the past to address stuff like this and how much the community seems to be up in arms about Phoenix apparent OP nature, I'm very surprised that another balance patch has come and gone with no Phoenix adjustments.
I mean, he has build diversity, but they did nerf his popular build, the slow build. So it appears to have had an effect. And on top of that, I don't know. I still don't think he was ever that bad. Like he was certainly overtuned right out the gate. I think they've addressed my biggest concern, which was that slow build. But really, if you learn to not stand in the circle, it's hard for him to put out enough damage. So I think with enough time on the field, we've learned how to avoid a big brunt of Phoenix's output.
Well, and look at the upcoming updates to reflect that philosophy again. We are getting mid bans added on to. Yeah. We're not banning the front, which means with this current hero design philosophy, we're meant to have some pretty solid generic heroes leading the charge every game. And right now, those are people like Phoenix, Stukov, Diablo, Maev, Chromie. Maybe more of a passion project there, but when we look at top popularity, that's what we're seeing. And those heroes will continue to be very powerful because we're going to ban out the more specific stuff that can make the game easier to win in a draft kind of sense later on.
Hey, if you have a reason for banning Chromie, I'm all for it, because it probably means we don't have a way to actually close on her, and it would be pretty bad if we were caught standing still. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's a pretty, I think, generous picture painting of the mid ban, right? Like, we're assuming that that's the case. The meta may change, right? I mean, I'm not concerned about it right now with Deckard being the next hero. It's like, yeah, I don't think any bans are going to go his way, but if we have another Phoenix, if we have another Maev, I don't think the mid ban's necessarily enough.
Could be. It's gonna be an interesting project, because when you show a Maev, you can instantly start thinking of things that'll combo with that. Get yourself a Garrosh, get yourself a Jaina, like load up that team. And there are plenty of ideas that I would have in that ban. What happens when those are unreadable and the first pick was a Kael Thas followed by a Sonya? What does Silver make in that ban project? I think they just start deleting things they don't like. Chromies, Novas, Moraleses down the line.
Which I think is fine. Yeah. Okay. I like that picture better. You bring me more into your camp, Kyle. As far as other heroes, there were multiple other heroes that received changes, but they were very minor. We're talking like one thing adjusted per hero. Cassia's Surge of Light now has a quarter-second cooldown between uses. This is the modifier to her, level 7 to her trait. Phoenix, mobile offensive now triggers off of any movement. It used to be unmounted only, so it's actually a buff to Phoenix if you're taking mobile
under
offensive.
Big Talent.
Yeah. Big if there. Sylvanas, Shadow Dagger now briefly reveals enemies upon spreading them. This is not tacked on to any talent. This is now just baseline. I like this a lot, actually.
I agree.
Yeah. Zagara. The player can now exit Nidus Worms in the direction of their choosing by right-clicking. I also like this quite a bit.
Yes, you could sometimes set yourself up a nice Nidus bush and end up forever stuck inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no good. And then they gave the same functionality to the bunker over on Blaze. You can now choose the direction you would like to exit. On top of that,
by right-clicking.
Yes.
That's very big because I play a lot of Blaze, so the number of people who accidentally activated their alt on exit because they wanted to get out quick was very high.
Oh, that's right.
It hit R to get out of there. And I'm like, why do you guys keep screwing up? I'm on cooldown for my R at the time, though, so I'm not going to lay 2 bunkers. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah, that's no good. But yeah, now you can just right-click and leave. Also, the hitbox of the bunker has been adjusted. It is now smaller. It matches the model of the bunker itself, which seems a little obvious, but I'm glad the change was made nonetheless.
Nice. We did the same thing with Medivh's portals, so a little less misclicking in our lives is always good.
Yeah.
Don't say it. Don't say it if you do it. By the way, just throwing that out there as always. Don't tell me.
Yeah, now you can just you can address it quicker without accidentally activating your heroic. So just move on.
Poor Malfurion just getting out, just blowing in silence, Kerrigan ults. Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's fixed.
Hey, we don't talk about in-game items a lot on this game, but I feel the need to mention that on the PTR there's a Deckard announcer.
Yep, he comes with his own rap. If you click Deckard long enough, he starts saying, "Let me tell you about the battlegrounds," and goes on to tell you the lore of the various battlegrounds.
Ooh, I like it.
So cool.
And there's also going to be a Grave Lord and Raven Lord available in this next patch as announcers.
It's not Deckard. I'm just excited about Deckard.
Well, you were talking about, you kind of like having your butt beat a little bit to get out there. So I suggest you that Grave Lord. He's pretty down on his own team. Maybe that could be motivational for you.
Fair enough. And then if you don't have your piggy bank mount, it's going away when the Deckard patch goes live. We're assuming it's Tuesday, so if you don't already have your lucky piggy bank mount, get it now. I think it's a pretty weird looking mount. I'm not even sure if I have it or not. I might. If I do, I never use it.
Nothing better than flannel Uther riding on the piggy. I love it.
Oh, that's good.
It's pretty solid.
Love it.
I like my golden chicken. That's my favorite mount. It's my favorite gold sync mount.
It's good.
And then we haven't even had a chance to get to the offensive language bans. Community manager Nate Valenta posted on the Heroes forums yesterday announcing that new tech has been implemented that enhances our ability to validate the accuracy of reports. Basically, this tech should allow the Heroes team to hand out more silences and rank suspensions at a much faster pace. So, phase 1 is already here.
Clean it up.
Be nice. Just be nice. Nothing more to add. Just be nice to each other. And then, Kyle, you pointed me to this. I totally missed this on the subreddit this week. But a site called Superdata claims that Heroes has 6.5 million players, which I find very amusing.
Yes, that is our meme number after all, and I'm glad we achieved it in our player base.
Yeah, the post on Superdata had actually nothing to do with Heroes of the Storm. It was talking about Dota and its shrinking player base, but goes on to talk about competing MOBAs that Dota still has higher player counts than, and cites Heroes of the Storm and Smite. But yeah, that's, to me, I see that, I'm like, that's a good number. I'm sure a decent amount of it is inactive, but still.
Sure, this is supposed to be like reoccurring monthly pings of players. So that would suggest a pretty darn healthy number, perhaps. I got to have your guys' perspective on this, because to me, as long as 9 other people log in the night, this game is functioning. And that's how I played Warcraft 3 Dota for so many years. I'm still just wowed that people line up for any esport regarding this bizarre game I played throughout my youth.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, where do you fall on the EPing of game numbers, Jeff?
Oh, I couldn't care less, other than the fact that I want them to keep making new content for this game. I mean, as long as Blizzard finds it to be a profitable endeavor, I'm happy. And if that means, whatever their number is for them to keep prioritizing this game, that's all I care about, because I want to keep playing it. And like Kyle, as long as there's somebody queuing into my match, I'm happy. I can tell you just what I know about how well games can do with the tiniest fraction of 6.5 million people. That is a very comfortable number, at least from the outside looking in. I obviously don't know any of Blizzard's thought process on this, but I do have some inside information on some other games that do very, very well with a very small fraction of that number. So,
yeah, I'm glad you pointed me to this, Kyle, because to tie it back in to the announcement that an API is not a priority, my thought was, well, maybe the player numbers are lower than they would like to shine a light on if an API was developed. But if this is even close to accurate, I don't think that's the issue. I think it literally is a bandwidth issue as far as getting an API built.
Well, and this does, dispel any fears we had about the game's perhaps longevity, right? When we have a player base there, now it's the problem of Blizzard to solve how you harness it into something that is profitable and allows you to do cool things. And I think one of the real tells that the team is overtaxed is, of course, what we talked about earlier with the matchmaking team being responsible for so many other game implementations like social and what have you. How do you encourage people to spend money in this game and continue their investment in it? And something that Dota just launched for itself, it really takes from kind of the Fortnite camp, these sort of season passes, not like them on Steam where you keep getting content DLCs as they come out. This is more that you receive a number of achievements, you receive enhancements, maybe ways to show off your profile more, to add achievements to your bar when people check you out. Dota's adding your ability to, use a radial talk menu so you can say any of the character lines whenever you want. But it's also coming with a draft helper, an item suggestion system based on the real-time information they have for their API, a death summary, and a lane calculator that would suggest what your matchup should be and how you should change your build based on what your matchup is. And that's going to be featured in the draft as well for $4 a month. It's such a new thing for a free-to-play game to then go the other way, right? Usually we're a subscription game, and then we say, oh, crud, okay, it's free-to-play, everybody, calm down. Now we're adding these subscriptions as bonus on top of games like Fortnite. And I would expect us to follow suit since we followed the loot box craze as well.
It's interesting. I think if the list of things like this is compelling, I'd be super into paying the fee. I think it's an interesting line to walk of stuff that actually does impact your performance in the game, information, trainers, things that actually would impact your performance in the game. These are not cosmetic items, but don't actively change the match you're in, the game you're in. It's an interesting line to walk, and Dota seems to have found some interesting bullet points here to do that. So I think this is ultimately a positive thing, although I'd like to see how it shakes out, if there will be a feeling of the haves and the have-nots in that community.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's I love that you brought up MMOs switching to free-to-play, Kyle, because it hasn't even been on my mind for half a decade, I think. Like we're kind of out of that now. Like, it's not really a thing anymore. I can't even think of which MMOs specifically are free-to-play versus still subscription off the top of my head, other than WoW and SWTOR. And SWTOR is still barely playable free-to-play. When I do play it, I just subscribe.
Well, just think of every MMO that has come out, and then think of them in 8 months after they come out, and then now they're free-to-play.
So every MMO except World of Warcraft is the answer.
Yeah, except World of Warcraft. Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I would be totally for something like this in Heroes of the Storm. There's all kinds of things that they could add that would get me to do it. Like if I don't have my year stim pack anymore. I miss it. I would like to get it back, but I don't like the exchange rate for gems. So I don't know. Give me I would pay monthly for a stim pack, just a stim pack. That would get me my dollars. And if they added anything on top of that, sign me up.
I mean, I think you can pay monthly for a stim pack. You just have to buy it once a month.
Well, yeah, but I'd rather have it be a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Efficient with my money?
Yeah.
But whatever the case is, this is interesting. I don't know. Do you really think that something like this is coming down the pipeline, Kyle?
I think it's a shift in the wind. I think Fortnite has found a lot of success in getting its players to continue their investment in it when they choose. When, you're thinking of kids at night choosing between the various games they have access to. A free-to-play game, of course, increases its ability to be there. Now, what if I spend a meager amount of money to invest myself further? We see huge number spikes for Dota during their international because that book filling it out, the XP bonus you get, not to the actual game, but to leveling up characters just like we do in Heroes of the Storm for cosmetics and whatnot, get a boost, and people are inspired to play more.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, besides heroes themselves, it is all cosmetic, everything that you're unlocking for this game. But I do want a lot of it. And now you've got me thinking about how much I want this for PUBG because I'm sick of buying keys to unlock my chests.
Well, there are a lot of games that do this. A lot of games that do this sort of VIP subscription where the game itself doesn't require a subscription. The game itself is free. There's stuff to buy in the game. But there's a VIP level subscription that means that you get extra stuff when you buy things that gives you access to certain things that other people don't have. Very common. And I think as it comes to these higher profile AAA games instead of just mobile stuff, maybe as you said, Kyle, this is the new loot box.
Well, and it's not quite as villainous because it's so based on learning and providing players information for wanting to improve. And that's something that I'd be willing to subscribe to and turn off from time to time as my video game habits in a casual environment would change and ebb and flow as, here comes this game I'm going to play pretty heavily. I'm going to pass on my sub for a bit.
Well, it's so interesting, the psychology of gamers and games, because I am so disincentivized to try a game that requires a subscription fee these days, but I will happily pay a subscription if it feels like an additive thing. And it's really just my own dumb brain rejecting a certain concept for no good reason and embracing a different one for the same dumb reason.
Well, and something I'm starting to think about is we are going to enter a MMR decay time period, which is healthy. There's a lot of people who this game has been out for a long time. They play once a week when they meet up with their friends, and that is not enough to maintain a performance level. And it can be frustrating, of course, when you're, more of a main gamer and you have that game night with your friends and you love it, you look forward to it, but you face your level opponents alongside them. What's going to happen? What quests are motivating them to maybe keep playing? What's going to motivate old school players from playing just enough to make sure my MMR doesn't decay? They come out and say, you got to play 5 games a week. Do I just play the 5 minimum? Does that go through my quests? Maybe I do need something a little more to kind of want to achieve that level.
I definitely blindly grinded hero levels a lot more before loot chests, personally.
Right, because we had master skins and all sorts of stuff.
God, I miss master skins.
Carrots on sticks.
I really miss master skins. Loot boxes they have introduced, I think, a lot of cool stuff to the game in the terms of the emojis and the sprays and the banners and so on and so forth. And a lot more skins for that matter, but it's so endless. It's this sense of I'll never get all of it, and I have no control over what I actually get from the chests themselves. So it's, for me anyway, it's such a wide ocean that I figure, why start paddling? I mean, I still play the game because I like the game, but if we're talking strictly incentivizations, I'm not sure the current system is the best.
I agree. I find all the skins and stuff to just be a fun bonus fluff layer of like, oh, look what I got. Oh, I got a chest now. Oh, that's fun. It's not, and I wasn't that way like you. I wasn't that way. I was like, oh, I gotta get that master skin. So it's interesting, but I don't know why those have to be mutually exclusive. You can still have master skins and a chest full of, a loot box full of other skins. Like make there just one that's special that you can only get by getting to a certain level with a hero.
Yeah.
Well, and we're all learning this together. And that's the fascinating thing about this period in video games. In the future, everything's Chrome future, people are going to walk up with a book and drop it on the table. It's going to say anchoring, what that means and why a tank does it. But we had to invent those words together. We've had to learn as a community what we spend money on. And it's a fascinating process. And I think for me, I never got a Charizard. I learned my lesson early about loot boxes when I was 15. I was at EA spending all my bucks. My parents' money was, that was allowance at the time. I skipped lunch so I could buy a Pokemon pack, and I never got my Charizard. So I learned that, the system doesn't get you what you want. So I play pretty safe whenever loot boxes come out. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Just been chasing that Charizard ever since, man.
My whole life, man. My whole
looking
life.
for it.
Then you realize you could just go to the hobby store and pay a lot of money for that one specific card.
Well, EB didn't have that in the glass case.
Doesn't scratch that thrill itch that he's looking for, baby, though. Yeah, you got to ride that Charizard.
Charizard is literally a dragon. You're literally chasing the dragon in this analogy. Well, that's just wonderful. Anyways, check it out. We got links in the show notes, amove.tv/ITN. Look for the episode 213 post if you want to see this link to the Super Data chart, or it's on the subreddit today. Go check it out. Now, let's take an email or two before we wrap this up.
Darkness stopped calling.
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
Okay, tell them I'm not here.
Shoot your emails to itncast@gmail.com. We're going to take just one today as we're already going long, but Yelly wrote in and says, hello, friends. I feel like I should be reading that like Brightwing. I'm not sure anyone wants to hear that, though. Anyways, my win rate for Hero League this season would be considerably higher if not for Dragonshire. It's been my understanding that a 1-4 split should be drafted with the 4-man clearing and rotating mid and bot early. Is this accurate? It has been my experience that early game everyone wants to fight or send more top, which ends in disaster. Please enlighten us on the way of the dragon. Shire. Thanks in advance.
Great example of what I've kind of been nervous about in our education push of someone saying, it's supposed to be a 3-man rotation. Why aren't we rotating? So just go with it. No way. Well, whatever. Nazeebo Soak bottom. It's fine. We got this. We're in gold. It's fine.
I can't believe I'm the one like trying to reel you into the side of like positivity, Kyle. It's usually the other side of the way, but I want to fight that with. Like, if your concern is with more education is that people get tilted when the thing that they were taught doesn't happen. Like, man, I don't know. Tilting is also an endless ocean, so why worry about it? People are gonna get tilted. I would rather have an overall more. Why can't we both have education and also an overarching sense of if it doesn't go perfect, adapt.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's have both. Because the phrase, have my cake and eat it too, is stupid and makes no sense. You can't have cake without eating it.
I can have cake. I can just have it. I'll just keep it here.
I mean, you don't have to eat it. Eating it is not a requirement. But if you want to eat it, having it is a requirement. Anyways, to Yelly's question. Yeah, I already kind of blew my answer. I wanted to come to this, Kyle, with what I said. What I was going to say was permission to have an unpopular opinion, which is don't think about it too hard. If everyone is not on board for the 1-4 split, if everyone is not on board for the same strategy, roll with it. Because that's been my experience in recent Dragonshires. I have a very good win rate on Dragonshire, and I have not seen a 1-4 split this season. It has been playing out like Heroes Tech Alpha Dragonshire games with 2 top, 1 mid, 2 bottom, and we're making it work.
Yeah, I agree. With my league, it happens, but one person usually lags behind, enjoying the lane for themselves. And usually the guy with the actual abilities to do the roaming and the ganking, like your Diablos, the guys who are going to have an impact in those situations. Sure, Stukov hangs out in the middle lane, doesn't make the rotation, but what did he really contribute to the gank? Maybe there's silence after the stun, but Diablo and me can make it happen, so we're just going to roll with it. But Dragonshire, I think, is right now the most stressful map in this game for me. And it is a constant back and forth. So I want to hear what Jeff has to say, because you are king of the two main heroes that often get thrown around for a Dragonshire situation, Dahak and Brightwing.
Well, that's a cheat, right? Because what he's talking about is this situation where people in the wrong position, and those are the two heroes that can compensate for that, right? Because I can be instantly go help out somebody far, far away. And I think that's why one of the reasons I like playing those heroes so much, that global presence can compensate for bad decisions or late decisions on either my part or my teammates' part. And so I'm definitely and this is one of the big reasons that I think that shot calling thing, is useful, is because I tend to be very reactionary as a player. What is my team doing? Okay, how can I accentuate that and make and help it out, instead of how can I take the lead and try to guide the strategy rather than just react to it. So I think one of the reasons I play Brightwing and Dahaka is that I'm able to be in a place and do the thing I know needs to be done, and then when my teammates get in trouble, I can be there in an instant and contribute also.
You also developed, though, over the last several months, a very active approach to that strategy, though. In the past, I remember you even typing in, "call if you need me," and then you go about your top business, whereas now, I'd say your eyes are split pretty 50-50 on your lane and then the global presence that you're ready to fly in for.
Yeah, and that's certainly a skill I've developed, and I think has helped greatly in, understanding that the responsibility is on you to be where you're needed and to understand where you're needed, and understand where you're most useful, and understand that you have a resource, and that resource is that global cooldown. And are you going to spend it now? Or are you going to wait to spend it when the objective is up? Or are you going to, when are you going to spend it? So all of that, of course, is part of the learning experience. But I do feel like those heroes, especially on Dragonshire, is a great map to use those kind of heroes, because you can be around and be more facilitating rather than trying to force a team into rotating. Basically, you're the one rotating.
And you have that great feature of, if you bring two people to the top lane on Dahaka and there's no way for you to possibly get the pad back, you can go join the bottom fight and have yourself a nice 5v3 down there while those two others take the pad in the top. I think one of the other things that really throws Dragonshire for a loop for people are the mercs, which only really interact with our two padded lanes, if you will, the ones that have the objective on them. Many of our other maps, there's a sweet idea of infernal shrines. It's bottom. You take the top merc camp, so that's going while the objective is forcing everybody in the bottom, and you make something interesting happen with that exchange. Because Dragonshire's mercs always tend to go down the lanes that are being fought over in the first place, they're often very low impact. And sacrificing somebody to go do a merc camp either straight doesn't happen these days, or is a deficit because that presence is lost on a padded map. And something we talked about yesterday during our coaching with Sky Temple is that there are two pads. And in a double tank meta, sure, great to have two tanks. But you also need enough health to stand on the pad and actually take it for yourself. And if you don't possess that overall base health amount to do that, you're going to be poked out, be forced off the pad, and lose the objective repeatedly.
And you're saying that, just to be clear, because I found that so illuminating yesterday, you're saying that not just you as a player, but you as a team. Like, your team health pool has to have enough to stand on that pad.
Exactly. We're trying to fill the whole jar with health, if you will. And you've got, you've got your red jelly beans that you pour in there for Kael'thas, and oh man, that didn't get too far in the jar, did it? But okay, let's grab up Diablo. Yeah. All right, we're over half full now.
Also red jelly beans.
But, red. So maybe not the best. Maybe not the best. We should have done another color for kale thoughts, but they're both fashionable people. Oh, so now that we have Diablo, now we can pour some of those gold pants jelly beans in there, some of them Tracer jelly beans. But we want to make sure that now that we have Tracer, that's pretty low health. Let's make sure maybe we favor a support with a little survivability. Let's go Lily instead of Anna or something.
I'm having too much fun of my brain right now, Kyle. Would the healing be not how many jelly beans, but the speed with which the selected number of jelly beans enters the jar?
Well, right. So there you're getting into drafting, right? The fact that a Leeming orb flies in and blows away half your jelly beans, you need to be able to recover them jelly beans.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I start taking
depending on the types of healing you.
Yes, I start taking the pad. I get chunked for health. My Uther goes, "Here you go, bud." And immediately after Uther heals me, the team fight breaks out, and our big heal is on cooldown.
The fun thing about Deckard Cain is that he literally sets some jelly beans on the table, and you can pick them up at a certain point and put them in the jar.
Right, but the problem is he also gets chased back over his own jelly beans and is forced to eat them. So
his mouth is always open in this scenario. This has really gotten away from us.
This is an analogy that never not works, guys.
No,
this is a perfect analogy.
It's perfect.
It always works, except in the case of being educational, because I don't think we learned anything here.
No, but I mean, basically, as you can kind of catch, you shouldn't run Hanzo and Chromie both on a map where you have two objectives that someone has to stand on. And it gets even worse on Sky Temple because there are things attacking you, and Nova actually cannot complete the pad herself. So we have, as you picture your team comp, you're thinking about the types of healing you have, the type of damage you have, but you're also just thinking, have we filled the jar with enough CCs? Do we have enough health in the first place to actually occupy these pads?
Yeah. That being said, I do just want to compliment Yeli's brain space, or just mindset, right? Because if you're thinking about the 1-4 split, and more specifically, you are thinking about the lane rotation, you're at an advantage, whether or not your entire team is on that same page. Whether or not they're trying to execute the same strategy. Having just one player out of 5 thinking actively about where do I need to be right now is a good thing.
Right, and I would say for Yeli here, he should be the Diablo. He should be that CC heavy target moving from lane to lane, and whether or not you have the 4-man rotating, which in all honesty, someone's going to fart off. It's a lot of fun to hang out in lane. It's very relaxing. You have the power that exists to do this in the first place. If you're sitting there on Lily asking, where's my 4 split? You're not even informing that with your own body language.
Yeah. So, yeah, I found Dragonshire oddly relaxing lately, even though I've been looking at it being like, man, this is an old school approach in the games I've had, but it's been only relaxing. You can certainly get into those parody situations that you're talking about, Kyle, where it's just, they got their mercs, we got our mercs, and they're in a lane with a bunch of people and they've done nothing. But they can certainly go long, but...
outside of that, it comes to piloting the dragon, which if you know how to do it, do it. And
yes.
I would even say, and this is me, holding your hand on the bed, it's okay. It's okay if you're the support. It's okay if you're the main tank and you know how to drive that thing better than anyone else, and it's go time. Sometimes these really harsh rules that we hear out there ruin a organic environment.
I was expecting a lot more pushback on what I thought was a sequence of unpopular opinions on Dragonshire, but I feel like all three of us are on this, just go with the flow mentality on Dragonshire. Also, if you know you're the best dragon rider, but the stars align and there's just no way you're getting there in time, don't get mad when someone else grabs
it. Unlike Garden Terror and the mech from Volskaya, I feel like it's whoever can get to the dragon before they get back one of those pads is getting the dragon.
Yep, that's where Dahaka comes into play, because it doesn't matter where you're at.
For sure.
If your cooldown is ready to jump to a bush,
get there, baby.
Exactly. More cheats from Jeff Cannata. I love it. It's like, well, I need a monkey wrench for this. Jeff goes, no, I brought a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, that is very fast to where it needs to be.
Well, it's going to wrap it up for this episode. Keep those emails coming, everyone. itncast@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, or conversation starters. Thanks again to our badass patrons for supporting us. If you like the show, if you got something out of it and you would like to give something in return, like we said, whether it's $1 an episode, $5 an episode, whatever works for you, we really appreciate it. I mean, like $1 an episode, was that like $4 or $5 a month if there's 5 Thursdays in a month? I will treat you to a Taco Bell dinner the next time I see you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Also, thanks again to our producers, Declan H. and Cheesy Bob. You can get Into the Nexus t-shirts, which are soon going to be retro since we have a new logo, over at shirts.amove.tv. Go check it out. We also have coffee mugs, pint glasses, and such at etched.amove.tv. Custom etched glassware over there. Catch us live Thursdays now at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That is our new permanent live recording time. If you want to join us live at twitch.tv/amovetv. You can follow us on Twitter at ITNcast. And big thanks to Gorath for our intro music and BrianGriffithMusic.com for our outro music. Before I, Jeff, ask you where everyone can find you, I just want to congratulate you on the fact that you're about to be a ×2 daddy.
×2 daddy. Yeah. Next week we have a C-section scheduled, so I will be a dad by the time the next episode is recorded of this show. A second time. I have a son, and I will be having a daughter on Tuesday of this week.
Woot! That's awesome.
Congratulations.
So happy
Thank
for
you. Thanks, guys.
Well, when you're not having very long days at the hospital, where can everyone find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Cannata, which is spelled with 2 N's and 1 T. And I do a video game show, general video game show called DLC. You can find that at 5by5.tv/DLC. And Kyle and I have mentioned it a few times, but he coaches me every week. We will not be doing it next week because of my birth of my daughter, but usually it will be Wednesdays and almost always 4 p.m. Pacific time on Caffeine at caffeine.tv/Jeff Cannata.
Sweet. Everyone go check that out. Kyle, what about you, man?
You can find me over at youtube.com/Kyle Fergusson. That is where I posted this week's Diablo tips and tricks video. But you should also check out There Will Be Dungeons, the D&D podcast that I do on the Frog Pants Network. Check that out as well. We have made it to our first city, and things go awry.
Nice. It's a good show. Everyone should check it out. Folks, I'm Garrett on Twitter. Kyle and I do a morning show every Monday called Week Sauce. All one word. Week is spelt like days of the week. We help you kick off your week. Go check that out, especially this week, because if you want to hear Kyle talk what is, in at least Angry Chicken terms, complete insanity about Hearthstone, you should go and listen. It was a fascinating discussion that I had a lot of fun in. So go check that out. But overall, it's just a fun show. I really like starting my weeks talking about everything except Heroes of the Storm with you, Kyle. So people should check out Week Sauce.
Well, this week I saw Ready Player One, so we'll be talking about that.
Oh, yes! Finally! I'm excited. Also, folks, I do graphic design, and I also have 1 hour lessons up for if you want to learn content creation or how to make sweet YouTube thumbnails, stuff like that. nomoonart.com is the place to go. Check it out. It's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you again, Jeff, for joining us. Thank you, Kyle, as always. I don't usually thank you, but I just felt the need to for bestowing your knowledge upon us.
I appreciate it.
And until next week, enjoy your weekend. Good luck and have fun.
Take care.
I forgot my catchphrase, guys.
It's positive, stay, die, don't.
There you go. Stay positive, don't die. Total brain melt there. Sorry about that.
I have been in that situation. Hey, babe. You timed that extremely well. I didn't know you were doing that. So Katie's been gone for 2 weeks, and I'm pretty sure she was just hiding outside my door with an old-fashioned waiting for me to say good luck and have fun. And this is the best thing that has ever happened to me this month.
Lucky guy.
I love you.
All right, fellas, I'm going to take off. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, man.
Take care.
Oh, that's good.
It was awesome to have him tonight on such a wide variety of video game topics. I always enjoy getting to hear Jeff's perspective on video game culture.
Yeah, man. I'm a fan. Like I've said it a million times. He's not here anymore, so I'm gonna gush. Like I've been a fan of Jeff for a long time. I really like the way his brain works, and I really like the way that you have just spread across 2 different frames. It's It's good. I mean, I could swap over here. See, this isn't. Nope, that's not it. Where is it? That's the busted. That's the busted area, and then we can just do one of these if my buttons would work. Where's the Kyle? There's the Kyle.
It's not important.
Yeah, just throwing you down there. But yeah, I'm like crying, man. This is really nice of her. I missed Katie so much. Like, you don't even understand how much I miss my wife when she's gone.
I can imagine, man. They're special ladies. Put up with us after all.
Yeah, they do. That was the longest, most public hug I think I've ever experienced at the airport on yesterday. Yeah. Yep. I think this is a spicy old fashioned.
Ooh.
Have I told you about this?
What do you do?
So it's an Albuquerque old fashioned, and Katie got this. You literally don't. It's measured in eyedropper drops. It's a Bitterman's habanero extract, and you use I think it's 5 or 6 drops of this, and you add it in, and I think the ratios of sugar and bitters are a little different than a regular old fashioned. Katie always makes it, so I don't remember, but it's awesome because you get the bourbon, like when it first hits your tongue, it's sweet. There's a little bit of citrus, and then you swallow, and you just have this purveying sense of spiciness from the habanero extract.
Does it kind of provide that, like, sometimes spiciness doesn't work like this, but kind of that Doritos or once you pop the fun don't stop quality, where the flavor kind of dissipates and you go, ooh, I want that back in my mouth? No, it's a lot more like eating an actual pepper or something with a pepper on it, like whether it's habanero, whether it's jalapeno. You ever have tacos with like fresh jalapenos on it? And when you're first eating it, it almost just tastes like green pepper. But the second you have swallowed, the only thing you're left with is the heat. It's good. I like it. Nice.
Anyways, I'm going to kill the stream now. You have all been lovely.
Hi, buddy.
Thank you for a great show.